Hello, everybody. This is stage 38. We're looking at about the language one, the indirect statement, which we have learned for quite a few stages now, but we're adding another tense to it. So this is the future in an indirect statement, and particularly the future active infinitive. Okay. So the nice thing is that one, you already know the basic idea behind an indirect statement, and two, the future active infinitive, and honestly, we all know this from the National Latin exam, but I wanted to make sure that I gave you a chance to review it. But it's really, really easy to form. Okay, so let's take this two-step process here. All right. The first thing is the indirect statement. Remember that an indirect statement is basically a way of indirectly reporting what uh, something else is happening, right? So not just that the enemy will fight soon, but that somebody says, somebody thinks, somebody feels. Remember, I call that the head verb, right? Whatever is introducing the indirect statement, say, think, feel, sense. Even the weirdest example is taste, right? I taste that the milk is spoiled. What a terrible sentence. But all of those are indirect statements. So here, the indirect statement that your book has used in the About the Language is we believe, right? So we believe that the enemies. Now notice there's no that word in Latin, and honestly, in English, we sometimes don't even use that word. We just say we believe the enemy. Okay, and then the verb that is within that indirect statement needs to be in the infinitive. Okay, so here's another example. The direct statement is the old man will die. Again, a terrible statement. And here we're saying the doctor decit. So decit is your head verb, right? The doctor says that the old man will die. So here is your indirect statement. Or the statement within the big indirect statement here. And so we see that infinitive there. The other thing that I wanted to point out to remind you of is that remember with hostes, so we believe that the enemy, or the doctor says that the old man. Do you remember what we call that? Yeah, it's called the head, or it's called the twisted object. That's my nickname for it, the twisted object. But remember that a grammar book would call that the subject accusative, because it is the accusative direct object of credimus, or the accusative direct object of dicit, and that's nothing new, right? The accusative is always the direct object, but it is also the subject of whatever that infinitive is. So here, the enemy will fight soon. The old man will die. Ugh. So we have the head verb, we have the twisted object, and then we have an infinitive. Okay, so let's talk about the future infinitive here. So if we look at pugno, pugnare, pugnavi, pugnatus, here we see pugnaturos esse. And remember, just like in the future active participle, we just shove an in that fourth principal part. So not pugna here, not pugnatus or here tos, but pugnaturos, not peritum, but periturum. And so that turns that into the future. All right. Now with the participle, or well, let's just say, so again, this is the future infinitive. So we have to reflect the fact that this action happens after this one, right? So just will is totally fine. We could say, will fight, or you could say something like the enemy is going to fight, something like that. But will, the same word that you always know for the future, gets the point across perfectly. So the doctor says that the old man not is fighting, was fighting, had fought, but will, or here will die. So will there, just good old standard future tense. All right. So if we look at our examples here, we've got the Prico decit, right? Remember, the Prico is like a herald or an announcer. So the announcer says, and then here is your twisted object, right? That many athletes, and then kertaturos cross. Now remember, cross means tomorrow, and kertaturos. So how would we translate that? The Prico says that many athletes and then this verb means to compete. So how would we translate that? The Pryco says that many athletes will compete tomorrow. All right, now look at D here. The mother believes that her daughters, now remember, advenio means to arrive. So how would we translate adventuros essay? The mother believes that her daughters, will arrive soon. Okay, so you can see here in part 3 just a morphology recommendation here of our verbs. So we have the added to that fourth principal part. So not portatus, but portaturus, not doctus, but docturus, not tractus, but tracturus, and not auditus, but auditurus. And ignore ignore these. Essentially, it's impossible to get this idea of being an infinitive and future tense in English. So to, because it's infinitive, and then about to carry, to be about to carry. So it doesn't make much sense in English, which is why we're not going to bother with that sort of abstract translation. But in the indirect statements, we just use will like we always do. Okay, so good luck, everybody.